This is Today's Issues. Welcome back. I'm Christy Carson. Absent fathers. Study after study show that absent fathers have a tremendous and long-lasting impact on the lives of their children. But are fathers absent because they simply don't want to be there? Or are they lacking the tools and knowledge to be more successful in that role? My guests are Halbert Sullivan, CEO of Father Support Center, Dr. Jeffrey Johnson, President and CEO of National Partnership for Community Leadership out of Washington, D.C. He is also one of the nation's leading experts when it comes to responsible fatherhood. Also joining us today is attorney Lisl King-Williams, 30 years of legal experience, including 10 years as a St. Louis City municipal judge. I began the conversation during this segment by asking Mr. Sullivan, how does a father begin to have hope when it appears like the system is prohibitive in terms of the laws and even social support?
Well, we use a variety of methods and techniques to do so. The one being, not to dispute the way you phrased that, the one being is to help them understand that the system is not against them. Okay? Mm-hmm. We have to our efforts are to first change their perception. If you can change a person's perception of themselves, in other words, I don't see myself as the victim on every street corner. Okay? If I can get that perception into here, I can then help that person to change his attitude about him, his child, and his situation. And when we can get attitude to change, then we can impact behavior changes. So we have on staff family therapists, social workers, parenting specialists, job developers, and of course we have our legal clinic.
The core of the curriculum is designed to help that person become more responsible in their interaction with their children. The Father Support Center Responsible Fatherhood program includes training in child abuse prevention, domestic violence prevention, and healthy relationship skills building, and marriage education. And all of that is wrapped around employment. Here, Halbert Sullivan explains why employment is so important.
At the end of the day, when you get through talking about responsible fatherhood or parenting or motherhood, you got to have a job, especially that dude. You got to have a job. Our project, the fathers sign up for a year, but they'll come to us for the first 6 weeks, 5 days a week from 8 o'clock to 4 o'clock. And that's in place that way to get him ready for a job. So that his automatic clock wakes him up at about 5:30 or 6 o'clock in the morning. A lot of people look at and they know the value of the time that the father spends to be very important. But let me ask you about your time. If you overspending time with your baby and the ice cream truck come down the street. Y'all heard that ice cream truck music?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Children come from everywhere to get some ice cream.
Oh, they do.
But you don't have no money to get your baby some ice cream.
It crushes
How's
you.
that? And how often will you go back to get that feeling? So therefore, we put a lot of importance and value on getting a job.
For fathers to receive the full benefit of the Responsible Fatherhood programs and other training at Father Support Center, it would take about a year's worth of commitment. But the initial training begins with an intense 6-week curriculum where participants are committed to showing up for 5 days a week from 8 till 4 p.m. Dr. Jeffrey Johnson, who helped develop several programs, explains the significance of the curriculum's intent.
The intent of the curriculum activities is to have the effect on developing that father's knowledge as a parent, a responsible parent. And what I'd like the listening audience to think about a person who's responsible, think about a person who's irresponsible. Think about a person in a healthy relationship. Think about a person in an unhealthy relationship. And those things the images come to folks' mind. And what we're trying to do to the curriculum is to give this father the parenting skills that he's going to need to exercise responsible parenting practices. All right. We look at issues like personal development. What does he have to do personally in order to become a responsible parent. And sometimes what we have to do is have him look at his own upbringing to see whether or not anything that's happened in his own background that has caused him maybe to not accept his responsibilities the way he should.
That's why we have the therapists on.
Right. Mm-hmm. We look at things like his values. All right. What are your values? You know what I mean? Do you go along to get along, or do you have your own sense of values and things that you stand for? What's your definition of manhood? Where did you get it from? All right. Is it influenced heavily by what you've seen on television? Did you just kind of make it up from what you've learned from the streets? What is your manhood? And is the manhood definition you come up with the best type of man definition for your children? Because if it's a definition of manhood that takes you away from your kids, maybe you need to rethink that. We talk about things like managing stress, things that are common in people's daily lives, saying that you have to learn how to manage stress. When you work with men of color, you also have to talk about issues of coping with discrimination and kind of get to that point that Halbert articulated. You can't walk around looking as yourself as a victim, because psychologically that's not going to empower you to do the things that you need to do. Then we talk about, what it is to be a responsible father. We actually take them through an exercise to say, what type of father would you want if you were a grandparent? What type of father would you want for your grandchild? And we put them in that mindset. And most of them come up with a Jesus list, right? Mm-hmm. So they come up with like this 25 or 30 things that kind of this halo father, all right? And then we ask them, if that is 100% of the things that you're looking for, what percentage are you of those characteristics? And then that's when class is really in session. Wow. Because they said, of all those things I identified, I'm only about 50%, all right, or I'm only about 40%, if they will admit it. Now, some of them will even tell you, well, I'm 100%, but I'm just not seeing my child. Well, how can you be 100% if you're not seeing your child? But we do that. Then we say, if you want to pass on values to your child, how do you do that? And then we talk about relationships. We also talk about men's health, because men's health is important, because men have a phobia about going in and getting treatment. The statistics say that when most men go into a hospital, when they enter a hospital, they enter into the emergency room, and they're not coming, for regular checkups. So we talk about things like that. But see, these things are a part of the curriculum at the Father Support Center, and over that period of 6 weeks, they get all of this, and we say they get healthy dosage of it. Nationally, they said that in order for this to have the effect that we want to have on the end result being positive parenting practices, they have to get between 16 and 32 hours of dosage.
Healthy dosages of responsible fatherhood, available at Father's Support Center. Facing the challenge of absentee and non-involved fathers. And for the children of these fathers, life is difficult, and the prospects for a productive life in the future are not as bright. Study after study has proven that, and we hope you come back for part 2 of this conversation as we hear more from Halbert Sullivan, Dr. Jeffrey Johnson, and a conversation with attorney Lisl King-Williams, who'll share some of her biggest legal issues that fathers face that hinder them from being involved. So much more to talk about, so please do come back next week on Today's Issues. For more information about Father Support Center, please visit fatherssupportcenter.org, fatherssupportcenter.org, or call 314-333-4170. That's 314-333-4170. It's an important topic, especially as Father's Day is just around the corner. I'm Christy Carson, and coming up next, it's a look at our community calendar, followed by Missouri.